Welcome to the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We bring people from different genres, different niches, different experiences, and we look at their high performance techniques, look at those things that have made them successful so that you and I can take away some of that information and apply them to our lives. So we have another really cool guest today, which I'm going to introduce in just a minute. A couple of quick things, a couple of supporters of the podcast, Jazz HR. You'll have heard them a few times in previous podcasts. They are an applicant tracking system that as companies are coming and building back over the next little while, they're going to be looking for different people to work for them. And this is a tool to help you do that. So if you're an organization that's looking to recruit for people, and if you're recruiters that are looking to be able to help manage that system, this is the best solution for it. It helps you track all of those things and move them through. So go to our website, which is www.bigideabigmoves.com, and you'll see the information on there. Take a look at it. I'm sure that you'll be able to find something that works. The other side is that Epitome HR. We know that the job market is going to be extremely competitive over the next little while. They've come out with some kind of career coaching packages that are everything from helping you with your LinkedIn profile, helping you with your resumes, and also being able to look at things like applicant tracking systems and how those things work. So really put together a strategy of how you leap ahead of other people and being able to get that new job, or if you're rethinking what you want to do, they'll help you with that as well. So with all that being said, we again have this fantastic guest today that we're going to be going into a conversation with. Chris Gronkowski is an entrepreneur. He's inventor of the Ice Shaker. That's a protein shaker bottle, which we're going to talk about today. It alleviates some of the problems that he saw as a high-level athlete, because before his venture, Chris had a career, made a career for himself in professional football. So he's played for the Dallas Cowboys, Indianapolis Colts, Denver Broncos. And he comes from a really high-performing family that I understand goes way back to his Olympian grandfather, which hopefully we could kind of hear a little bit about today. And he works closely with his brothers as well in both business life and other things, which we'll talk about there as well, because they are all successful athletes, which is pretty cool from a high-performance standpoint as well. And Chris was featured on ABC Shark Tank as well, so you'll know that he secured investment for his invention from Mark Cuban and Alex Rodriguez. So hopefully we'll hear lots of good tips of how that worked out. And again, Chris, thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro. Excited to be here and excited to chat some business and sports.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the cool thing is, well, it's morning time there. Have you? A lot of people want to know usually what's a morning routine for somebody who's kind of has that athletic background, but also a business background. You've been busy, I think, on calls already this morning. But what's your morning routine look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's changed a lot since COVID hit. It used to be you wake up early and I would be at the gym by 5 a.m. I'd usually work out. I had a group of guys I was playing basketball with as well, because for me, I needed competition in my life still. I needed something to push me. And I'd like to do that early in the morning and really get my morning started and really feel like I accomplished something right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then that would just get me fired up. That would get me motivated. And I'd go right into my work day. And, I'd crush it. For me, I have 3 kids now as well.
Yeah.
So I would like to get home about 7 o'clock and I would work for about an hour and really crush the really important things and line up everything for the day.
Yeah.
And then my kids would wake up and I'd get them ready, feed them. My wife and I would get them ready, and usually they go to school. Now they're kind of just getting ready to hang out at the house now.
Yeah.
But I'd like to take that hour to really connect with my kids and my family and take care of them, and then it's back to business until about 5 o'clock. But being a business owner, I guess it really never ends. Even when I'm hanging out with them, I try to put my phone down, but a lot of times business calls, and I'm just 24/7, usually around the clock, doing something with work as well.
Yeah, and that's so a lot of people probably think, okay, going from your kind of elite athletic background into business, that's a huge change or a big pivot. Do you find it being a really big change for you, or how's that looked?
Yeah, it's almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. As an entrepreneur, It is, because everything is dependent on you. It's long days. Waking up for football was 5 a.m. It was a 12-hour work day. You get back and you study for your playbook for the next day. And as an athlete, your success depended on yourself. If you wanted to be good, you had to put that training in. You had to study. You had to study the playbook. You had to study your opponents. It's all the same thing with business. If you want to be successful, you have to study. You're still studying your opponents, just in a different way. You're studying the market. You're still waking up early. You're grinding. And a lot of it's just teamwork as well. And that's something that I've realized later on as an entrepreneur, because at first I thought I was the guy that could just do it all myself, right?
Yeah.
You've been so successful in the past, and you're like, hey man, I could do this better than anyone, which you probably can, but there's a limit. There's a ceiling on how much you can do. And I was working 80 hours a week, and finally, it finally clicked. Like, hey, in sports, you win because it's a team. Why am I trying to do this all myself? Why am I trying to be the superstar of my company? I need to build a team. And once I started doing that, that's when we really started to take off to another level.
Yeah, it's that piece where you all have strength too, right? And you can leverage other people's strength, just like with a team. But same thing in business. If you find somebody who's really that superstar social media person or whatever it happens to be, that or the accountant, and if you've got that, it just adds to your ability to get more done.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, you can't do everything. And when you try, you're not doing it to the best of your ability anyways. So you're better off bringing someone in and teaching them and making them feel a part of it, and really give them responsibilities that, that you had before as well, and let them run with it.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. And that was one of my hardest things. And that was something I really worked on at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, it's just being able to let go a little bit.
Absolutely. That's tough, especially when it's your baby and
Yeah.
it's your invention and it's your company, and you almost feel like no one could do it as good as you. But if you take that time and you actually teach them, instead of just saying, hey, I'll just do that myself, really take that time and teach them, they're going to be able to be just as good as you, or maybe even better, because you get that outside perspective that you don't necessarily see, because you're kind of, it's kind of tunnel vision for you, because it's your product and it's always been your baby. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's good to bring someone else in and get someone else's opinion.
Absolutely. Well, let's walk back a little bit then. You're a lot of people think that coming up with a product or service it just happens for people. I mean, this was something that I think you built up to a little bit. So tell me, how did the process go to get where you are right now?
Yeah, so it was pretty crazy. So I was in the NFL. I played 4 seasons, had 4 credited years, and what ended up happening was my wife actually started a business after my 3rd year, and she started it because she was sick of finding a new job everywhere she went. 3 different cities in 3 years. I was on 3 different teams, and she's like, this is ridiculous. I've done so many interviews. I get this great job, and then boom, I'm gone. So she wanted to find a way to work from home. And so her idea was, she was going to hand paint wine glasses. And I came home and I just kind of shook my head and said, that's cool. Sounds like a cool little hobby. And all of a sudden, the next thing I knew, she started selling them. And she started selling them to a point where she couldn't keep up with it, because to hand paint them took about 30 minutes each.
Yeah.
So at that point, she said, hey, I got to find a better way to do it. And she bought a vinyl machine. She started cutting vinyl, and she was able to do it a lot faster. And at that point, I started looking into it and saying, wow, there might actually be something here. And I was still playing football, and she just kept growing it and growing it and growing it. And at that time, I was released from my first team. My first contract ended. I guess my 3rd team it was at the time, but it was my first contract was over.
Yeah.
And so I had a period of time where I had about 3 months where I wasn't signed with a team. And at that point, really looked into it and said, wow, this personalization company and business is huge. It's wide open. And we saw an opportunity there, and we jumped on it and started spending money towards, commercial grade laser engravers and bigger cutters and diamond tip engravers. And we really focused on the wedding industry. And I got signed to the Chargers, and I ended up leaving, and I was there for about 6 months. But in the back of my head, I was like, man, this company's blowing up here. Should I go back or should I play? And I ended up getting hurt in camp and got released with an injury settlement. And that was kind of the period of time where like, hey, we should probably go back to this and really, really focus on it. So long story short, we were able to grow that. And I was making more money my first year outside of the NFL than I was playing in the NFL. So a nice little transition for me. But all that kind of led to this, which is the ice shaker. About 5 years into it, it was my wife's passion. It was doing really well, and I loved it, and it was a challenge. And it kept growing and growing. It's still growing today. And it was 2016. I was at the gym in Dallas, and super, super hot out. And I go to take a sip of my water. It's warm. It tastes terrible. And I'm making like sweat rings on the ground every time I put it down. And I just said, man, there's got to be something out there that's better than this. You know, there's all kinds of insulated bottles, but there was really nothing out there that was just easy to fill, easy to clean, that I could use all day, every day. You know, bring it to the gym, but also bring it to work. You know, bring it on the airplane, bring it to the pool. You know, use it at home. Like, I just want one bottle instead of having 5 in my sink at the end of the day. At that point, the goal was, let's just make the best bottle that I can for the gym and for everything else. You know, for everywhere I went, just one bottle is all I wanted. And that's where the idea came from.
Wow. And so, you know, you had a big leap when you went to Shark Tank, I guess. So, because you had prototypes, things like that. You know, what's it like to prepare for that? I mean, one thing is what happens in there and what happens with the show, but you know, the preparation part. My understanding is you've got a pretty good math brain, from what I understand. And so, you know, how did all of that, like, how was it getting prepared to head into that type of an environment?
It was kind of like, you know, your first NFL game is
Yeah.
kind of how the feeling was. But the cool part was I had 8 seasons to watch that I could prepare from. So I wrote down every question. I had pretty much every answer memorized in my head, and I was ready to go, man. So anyone who got tricked up before, or you know, they really made an example of, I sat there and just said, hey, I am going to make sure I know the answer.
Not that guy.
I can't be that guy, you know, because realistically, this show lives on forever. You know, my kids are going to see it, and that was kind of the thing I kept thinking. Like, hey, if I'm that guy who you know, just gets embarrassed on there, my kids are going to see it, and their friends are going to watch it in high school, and I got to come out. And I got to be a beast. So I was 100% prepared for it, and I was crushing the gym too. So I was making sure I was looking good too. I knew this was on forever, so I had to look good, be prepared. I came in ready to go, and the really cool part was that I was able to have my family there with me as well.
Yeah.
Because you do get nervous, but man, when your family's there, when you call your 4 brothers out of the back room and they come
Yeah.
and give you a huge chest bump, after that, I mean, it's game on. Like, you're not nervous anymore after something like that happens.
Well, and it's interesting that, you know, your family is so tight knit that way. I was looking at, what did they Vanity Fair called you guys the first family of jocks, which is something
I
that's
like it.
hilarious. But like, you know, all of you seem like you're pretty. I'm sure you're competitive with each other, but you're also very supportive and probably kind of connect. How does that work for you guys, where you're kind of you're all quite different, but are so connected that way?
Yeah, it's funny because growing up, it was the exact opposite. You know, all we did was fight. You know, if any of us got awarded something, you know, we were jealous, you know, and we were mad about it, and we wanted to then, you know, beat them in that. So, like
Yeah.
something like a home run derby. If I won the home run derby, you know, all my brothers, you know, they're telling me why I shouldn't have, and they're better than me and all that. So that's kind of how it was growing up, and it was nonstop fighting, and you know, we were super, super, super competitive. But as we got older, we became so much more supportive of each other. And instead of putting, you know, you know, that fighting spirit against each other, we were putting against our opponents, and we were working together as a team. And that's kind of how it is now. You know, we are super competitive. We want to win in everything we do, and we all kind of work on different things at this point.
Yeah.
But then everything overlaps because everything we do is all about health and fitness and helping people get better. And so we then come together and say, hey, you know, we're helping this group over here. How can you be a part of it as well? And so we have so much synergies in everything we do between, you know, G&G Fitness and Gronk Fitness, which is my dad's fitness company that he's been doing for over 30 years. He's now the second largest distributor in the U.S. of fitness equipment. And then we have Ice Shaker, which is just all about, you know, living an active, healthy lifestyle. We have a new event called Stadium Blitz, where my younger brother Glenn is now working with them, and it's an obstacle course race through NFL and college stadiums. So really, really cool event as well. And so all we do is, you know, we tie everything that we can together, and all the relationships and partnerships that we have, we find a way to work together, and we all benefit from it. And so do our partners. So it's been a really, really, you know, cool model that we've done, and we've been able to stay together really close as a family, but also at the same time, give each other space and work on different things.
And how does I mean, that it's probably applicable to all of you, but for you, having that kind of athletic background, what do you think what are some of the traits, some of the things that you've learned through your athletic career that you see have really helped you kind of move things ahead in business? Like, what are some of those key things?
A lot of things. First off, obviously hard work, long days. Number two, what I think is really big is multitasking.
Yeah.
I think that's big. I think that's more of a college trait that you learn when you're going through school, and you have school, you have football. It's a nonstop grind. College is a lot. And then for me, I think leadership and teamwork is huge as well. Like I was kind of hitting on before, once I really figured out how important the team was, that has really taken us to a whole new level. And we really have clicked and grown so much because of that. So I think those three factors are absolutely huge. And
Yeah.
that's what wins in football as well. When you have that as a team, those are the teams that win.
Okay, so you go into a boardroom now. Is it a help or a hindrance that you're probably recognized first as an athlete? Hopefully that's changing now, but is that a good thing in that environment where you're trying to get maybe distribution deals and things like that? And has it been a help or a hindrance to be known as the athlete kind of family?
I think it helps to get you in the door.
Yeah.
But after that, I don't think it matters. So they're gonna answer the phone because of it, and they're gonna want to talk because someone at the company, or maybe them, or whoever it is a fan or loves football, or has heard of some kind of story, likes to party. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Whatever it is, they're probably gonna answer the phone. But at the end of the day, if you can't deliver, if you don't have a good product, if you don't have a good service, they don't care. They're there to make money. That's the end goal. And so yeah, they'll answer and it helps you get in. But if you can't deliver, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. So you better be able to do a good job and have a good business or company.
What's the biggest challenge you've had to overcome so far?
Oh man, so many. Just right out the gate, 20 prototypes later, we think we have our product right. And the first shipment that comes in, we ended up having to check each and every bottle because the actual pop top on it that we never had an issue with sealing, for some reason, once we got them, they come in two. They make them in twos off the machine. And so every other one wouldn't seal correctly. And if you just lifted the bottle upside down, it would leak everywhere. And so something that we never had an issue with, they didn't even test it because it never had been an issue in the last 20 prototypes, shows up in an order of 10,000 bottles, which out the gate is, it's a lot for a first
Big investment. Yeah.
And half of them leak. And we had to go through, at that time, it was in the upstairs of my house where we were storing them, 10,000 units. And we had to go through hand by hand and change every single lid out and check them all before we were shipping the product out. So right off the bat, this terrible challenge. If I wasn't passionate about it, if I didn't absolutely love the idea and the grind, I probably would have just gave up right at that point. So there's so many challenges. That was just one of so many. Every day there's something that is something that you have to figure out. You're almost a problem solver as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I think people think it's nice and smooth, but it never is. And I think that's a great example because that could, to a lot of people, if you don't have that resiliency, to think that half of your shipment there's a problem with, of one of your first big shipments, that could be really disheartening to somebody.
Yeah, it was half, but we still had to replace all of them because we couldn't figure out which
Couldn't
ones were
figure it out already.
different. So we just had to look through all
Even better.
It was a grind, man. And that's also on top of, working a full-time job on top of that, which was more than that because it was really, my wife's business at the time that we were understaffed. We were trying to do way too much, of course. And, that was a long day there as well. And then we come back and, we work on changing out lids all day. So
yeah, but it's your own at the end of the day. Makes a difference though, right?
It's one of those stories that, I wish I had more pictures of it so I could go back and kind of show everyone, where it started and have that story. For me, it wasn't the garage. For me, it was the upstairs.
Upstairs. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You won't have the old Jeff Bezos picture that will live forever. So you'll just have it in your mind instead. You've obviously met lots of people over your career so far here. So what's the best piece of advice that you think you've received?
Oh man, I would say it's from my dad.
Yeah.
So super successful in business as well. Over 30 years in business now. And, when he started, he worked two jobs and he worked full time for 6 years with 5 boys and got his business off the ground doing that. So crazy to hear. But he was meeting with the CEO of Life Fitness. And he was, he was invited to, I think it was a trip to Hawaii or Cancun or something like that. And the guy, the CEO at the time said, "Hey, so tell me a little bit about your company." And he told him about it. And his response was, "So you don't want to grow the company?" Like he's like, "You're happy with where you're at?" And my dad was like, "Well, what does that mean?" Of course I want to grow it. And he said, "Well, you got to hire people. You got to give people responsibilities. You have to build a team." And that's a story my dad told me over and over and over. And it really didn't sink in until in probably the last year. And that's why I think team building is so important. My dad just kept pushing that to me as well. And he kept telling me the story. He's like, if you want to grow, you have to hire, you have to bring in good people, and you have to take care of them. And so when it finally sunk in, it finally hit, it all made sense. And we've really just accelerated ever since that happened.
Now, how do you choose the people that you want to work with, Chris? Like, what kind of a trait or people are you looking for to make sure that they hold true to what you want in your product and your service?
For sure. The kind of people that I look for, I don't even really necessarily look at degrees or past or anything like that. What I want is I want someone that's just going to get it done. So I want someone that instead of coming to me and asking me, "Hey, how do you do this?" They figure it out. And that's how I have always been myself. I did everything for the company starting off, and I had no one to show me how, from sourcing product to advertising, Facebook advertising, learning every single platform pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Laser engraving products, all that whole aspect, fulfilling orders, customer service, every single aspect of the business I did myself for the first year for the most part. And so when I find someone that comes in and just wants to get it done instead of asking me, if there's an issue, they go and figure it out first, and then they come back and say, "Hey, we had this issue. This is how I could fix it. Here's a couple ways I can fix it. What do you think's the best way?"
Yeah.
That's the person that I want on my team, because they're go-getters. They're just going to get it done instead of just sitting there and waiting, doing nothing, and just for me, they're just waiting for me to tell them what to do.
Yeah, it's that kind of dig right in mentality. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
is there something that surprised you about being an entrepreneur so far?
Man, I think
Everything?
that kind of, yeah, kind of what you end up doing, right?
Yeah,
Everything that you end up doing, it's like you're the guy also in there cleaning toilets,
yeah,
and you're just like, man, I thought this was going to be the coolest thing ever, and you're the boss, right? And boss doesn't necessarily get the best chores as well. I mean, there's things that I've done where I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm doing this right now, or I would even learn about this. But yeah, I mean, the first time we moved into our building, the toilet was broken, and I'm in there fixing the toilet, and I've never fixed a toilet before. And
all these other life skills you didn't realize would come out of being an entrepreneur.
there's so much stuff. Everything's thrown at you, and fixing computer, everything you could think of, building websites. I mean, I've done everything, and I enjoy the challenge, so it doesn't bother me. I enjoy working as well, so it's just things that I never thought I'd be talented at Photoshop or making videos or really anything that has come across my path. And it's super interesting to learn it. I just never thought I'd get to that point.
Yeah, and how do you learn it? I guess that's the one thing too. A lot of entrepreneurs are figuring, oh well, I don't know how to do it. Well, yeah, but if you're having to do everything, how do you jump in and try to figure stuff out?
Yeah. So for me, YouTube has been my best friend for sure. A lot of times I just dive right in, and I try to figure it out myself. YouTube has been super helpful. And then, something that was really cool early on was actually networking groups on Facebook. I joined a few, especially on Facebook ads. I thought that was a huge help because, my first $100 I spent on Facebook, I didn't make one sale. I didn't know what I was doing. And why I went back to it and why I joined a group, which is free, it's a free group. I just searched for it, and I was able to join it. They let me in, and I was able to ask for help, and people were nice enough to help, and I would go back and I'd tell them what would work and what wouldn't. So they kind of learned from what I was doing as well, but it was really cool group for free that people would share information. But why I kept going back was because every time I watched Shark Tank afterwards, I would see companies come in and say, "Hey, we spent this much money on Facebook, and we had $1 million in sales in the month of July." And I'm like,
What?
how did they sell $1 million off Facebook? I got to be doing something wrong, right? And
Yeah.
that's when I just go back and try to figure it out and try to figure it out and try to figure it out. And that's it's kind of how business has been.
Yeah, and it's that trial and error piece too, right? Is like figure out what works and shoot and see what happens.
stick with it and go all in with it. Yeah, it's a lot of learning.
Very cool. You mentioned your dad is one of those kind of people that you look up to from a business standpoint. You have a family now. What are there certain things that you think you'd like to make sure that your dad did for you that you want to pass on to your kids? Are there things there that jump out?
Absolutely. I think the biggest one, or the hardest challenge for me, is going to be making them understand the value of a dollar and making them earn everything that they have. So my dad, I don't know if it was on purpose or not early on, but he wouldn't get. They made us buy everything ourselves. We wanted it. All right, that's great. Go get this job as an umpire. That's great. Go be the paper boy. So we had a paper route for 6 years. We were umpiring. I was working for my dad when I was 15, delivering treadmills and fitness equipment. But I think it was something that happened to him. And so he really knew the value of a dollar because he was never handed anything. He had to buy his first car. He had to do all that himself. So he made sure that it was the same for us. So even when he could later on in life afford to buy us a new car or pay for our flight or buy our meal and all that, it wasn't that way. It was, hey, if you want it, you earn it. And that's how it's going to be. You're not getting college for free. So you better go find a way to get a scholarship and earn that D1 scholarship, or you're paying for it, or I'll help you and I'll pay for it now, but you're paying me back. So I think that's a challenge because I do have the means to go out and buy whatever I want for my kids. Sure. And when they're asking and they're your kids, you want the best for them and you want to give them the world, it's hard to say no. But I think by saying no, you're actually doing them a favor and you're teaching them the value of a dollar that's really going to benefit them down the road.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty amazing that you still have that kind of thinking behind having your kids kind of work for it, because you see so many that are in a similar situation to you, and it probably does make a difference down the road. So before I go into so I will ask you kind of at the end, give us a couple of hints. Obviously I have to ask, okay, so Rob is going back this year to be with Tom. Do you think they can do the same thing that they've done before, or do you think it'll kind of recreate things if stuff happens with COVID and they get back to some normalcy?
Yeah, I mean, I think this might be the best situation for them with COVID, as long as they play this year. And why I say that is because those two guys are going to work and outwork anyone. There's never going to be a day off, even if the facility's not open. It doesn't matter. Where a lot of guys, I'm sure they're chilling at home. I'm sure they're not putting in as much work as they would if the facility was open. So if anyone's going to come out of this stronger, it's probably going to be Tom Brady and Rob. Because I'm sure they're going to put the work in. I'm sure Tom's throwing every day. I'm sure he's going to be ready to go. So I think they're going to have a great year. I think they're going to work extremely hard. I think they're going to walk into a new team and be humble about it. When I had Rob on my podcast on Gronked Up, all he kept saying was, I just want to show up and I want to work. I got to go back to day one. I got to put that work in, and then I'll let you know how we're going to do. So that's always been his mentality. It's like he doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to be about it. He wants to get the work done first. And then that's always been his attitude. But then when he's ready and he's confident and he put that work in, then he wants to have fun. And you see, that's when you see the fun come out. But that's after he's prepared. That's after he's ready. That's after he's proven himself. And I think that's what you're going to see this year.
Yeah, well, and I think that translates exactly back to the stuff you were talking about, that it's the hard work and kind of the resiliency and being humble part that has obviously translated well for you in the entrepreneurial part too. So, one thing we ask every guest is somebody's at home, they're thinking, you know what, this really speaks to me. I want to start on the path to being, to starting my own business, to being an entrepreneur. If you could say 2 or 3 things they could do today, like that right afterwards, what would be a couple of things you think they should start with?
So for me, it was always about making a successful idea better, is how I always looked at things. So don't try to recreate, the wheel. There's so many things out there already that are already proven to be successful. Just find a way to either do it better or make the process better, make it easier, whatever it is. So that's how I always looked at things. That's how my wife's business was. Mm-hmm. It's personalized gifts. There's anyone could do it. The reason it's been so successful is because we do it better. We bring in better products. We turn it around faster most of the time, same day. Absolutely no patents, nothing like that is needed. It's not proprietary.
Yeah.
We just do a better job than everyone else. We follow up with our customers. We make sure their order is what they wanted. We follow up with an email and make sure they're satisfied with it. And we reconnect with them. We make them feel like family. Same thing with Ice Shaker. You know, everyone, the first question on Shark Tank is, hey, do you have a patent? And at the end of the day, they don't really care. You know, at the end of the day, it's all about having a better service than everyone else is really, and doing it better than everyone is really what it comes down to. If someone wants to make a similar cup to me, they can. You know, I can have any patent in the world and they can still come and make something very similar. So I always tell people, just make it better and do it better. You know, and make the service better, just do it better and hustle harder than everyone else, and you're going to be successful. I think that's absolutely huge. And then for me as well, what I thought and kind of how I started things too was I always started it as a side hustle. You know, people are always looking for investments or putting all their eggs in one basket. For me, it was, hey, I'm still working full time here. That's how my dad did it as well. You know, it's kind of how it started with my wife. We had our money source, our main money source, and then it was kind of the side project. Like, hey, let's start this and let's see where it goes. And then once it gets there, once we know it's successful, once we know we can live off of it, let's go all in at that point. So that's my advice for people as well is, hey, start it, because at the end of the day, you work 8 hours a week or 8 hours a day. I'm sorry. No, there's still another 8 hours in the day for you to do other things. So especially if you're young and you're single, you have a full 8 hours, a full second work day to do something else. So why not do it and figure out if it works or not? And if it doesn't, no, great. At least you didn't go all in and lose everything on it, you know, and then restart. But and I guess my third one would be, you know, just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that you can't. So, you know, anyone could say, hey, there was a million other shaker bottles on the market. Yeah, that's great. You know, there's also a Lowe's and a Home Depot across the street from each other. You know, there's opportunity out there, and just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean that you can't do it better than them. So don't get discouraged because you know, even when a competitor comes into the space, that's fine. You know what that ends up happening is it makes you better, and at the same time, it also introduces more people to your concept. So if I have a competitor come in, that's great. They're spending money to educate the customers about the stainless steel bottle, which if I'm doing a better job than them in it, they're going to end up being my customer anyway. So bring on the competition. I'm going to elevate my game, and I'm going to get your customer anyway. So that's how I look at it. Instead of saying, hey, a new competitor, oh man, I'm so mad about it, I can't believe it, and getting down on yourself, look at it as, hey, that's another opportunity for me to get better and to acquire more customers.
Wow. I mean, and your competitiveness comes through when you talk about that. Yeah, well, that's awesome, Chris. I mean, I really appreciate that you've done this for us. I mean, the content has been incredible. People are going to take away some really cool things today. So it's been great that you've been able to share it. Anybody listening, if you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast here, make sure that you do that. Chris, what are some of the best ways to get in contact with you and find out more about Ice Shaker?
Absolutely. So website is iceshaker.com. You could find the Ice Shaker brand on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Ice Shaker Bottle. And then me personally, I'm pretty much on everything as well. I've joined TikTok. You know, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. Facebook is, I don't have a Facebook page, but you know, I have my personal Facebook, and then LinkedIn as well, all at Chris Gronkowski. So follow me there. I'm posting all the time, posting mostly workout content. I like to give away free content. I love living a healthy and active lifestyle. So check out my workouts, but I just like to have fun as well.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll put that in the show notes as well. So anybody who wants to do that, go to www.bigideabigmoves.com. We'll have it in the show notes there, and also on the podcast information. And and there's also, if you're planning some of this stuff, there's a big planner that you can take as well. So let's make sure that you take advantage of that. But again, thanks, Chris, and appreciate you jumping on today.
Yeah, and I guess one last thing, if anyone else is looking for a podcast, check us out. It's Gronk Up, and I'm sure it's on the same network as all yours as well. So listen there, come on over, check mine out as well. And then, hey, when are you going to join it? You're going to come on? Yes, for me?
Absolutely. Anytime you want, Chris. All right. And we'll make sure that we put the cross thing there so people will jump right over right after they listen to this one. So, Perfect. All right. Thanks a lot. And we'll talk to everybody again on Big Idea, Big Moves.